Alright, today I'm going to be doing something slightly different, and I'm going to be going over my Gen 4 Mongolia document and just kind of explaining everything and showing you where it's found, and then at the end I'll play some games and see how that goes. So a couple things to get into before the document is this is only covering Gen 4. If you want to get good at Gen 3, I definitely recommend the Gen 3 guide by MD Sylvester. It's a really good guide, pretty long, but it's good if you want to get good. The JSON is included in the document. I will leave a link to it in the description, and obviously the link to this document itself is in the description, and also I think it's on the Plunkett bot if in Discord if you use the documents command. So I'll come into this later, but that is just a note at the start of the document. And again, there's the most important section, but in this video I'm going to be covering everything. So yeah. Just a quick shout out to Mongoliacord, where a lot of this information was gathered. A lot of the meta here was found by other people, mainly Sumi and MD Sylvester were big contributors to this document. Alright, so this is all the stuff that is included in the document. Starts here and goes down. There's quite a lot. Some of it is definitely more helpful than others, but I think if you know all of it, then you can just about get around every time. There are some that require, per se, a bit more vibes. Like, for example, the double knot, I would say, needs a bit of vibes, but there are some that will let you just tell you where it is instantly. So if we get into it, the single knot tent strap, this essentially looks like, as it sounds, there is one knot on the strap. So if we come over to map making app and I go in, as you can see, there is only one knot that is visible. Maybe another one, but it's not visible. So the single knot is found, it's kind of annoying, but it's found mostly in the west. On this road, it does actually go here, but there's a better meta for getting here, this specific bit, so I like to keep it separate. But there's also sections near Telman and following up this road to Songino. And then around the Kyrgyz lake, it's pretty recognizable, but I think it is gettable off the lake alone. But it does fall here. There's a tiny section here, which is kind of annoying, but yeah, it does exist. I think this is all off-road here. Yep. So we've actually clicked on the note that was at the start of the document. If I head over. So this note is essentially just, if you see this strap and it's kind of folded over, don't worry, it's just single knot, but it's been folded over and you can't see it. So this is still single knot, but your strap has been folded over. In fact, yeah, so as we can see, this is the same coverage, but on that last frame, or that last panel, the knot was folded over. There's also sections around Olgi and following this road up all the way to the border essentially, and then it comes down and essentially to Coved, I don't know how you say it, but to this place here, pretty big place. If you learn the road that the Gen 4 does follow, this should be Gen 3 if I click on it. Yeah, as you can see, Gen 3. So if you learn where the Gen 4 follows, it follows this road here, and it's pretty good to know where it could be. Lastly, there is a tiny bit off the road here. It's slightly different car, and maybe there's a meta in that, but I haven't looked too much into it because it's never really come up for me in a game, but it does exist, so it's kind of annoying again, but yeah. So as you can see, it's one knot, and maybe the meta is the tent is a lot fuller than it usually is. To me, this looks pretty full compared to the usual ones, so yeah. Yeah, that's maybe a good meta actually. Just found one. But yeah, as you can see, that's the usual one. So this tiny section here, not sure if this is it. Yeah, so this tiny section is all this. It's a single knot as well. Okay, so the next single knot variant, I suppose, is the single knot, but it's kind of on the right. So if I highlight single knot again, we should click on this, and it's either going to be more to the left or fairly central. If I have a look at some of this coverage, we can see that it's slightly more right. So this is one of the metas that I would maybe say is not as helpful, because it does take a little bit of imagination to be like, oh, that is on the right. But I think it is gettable, hence why I've included it in this document. And it is found on this tiny section here around the town here. Not going to try that. Just near Mongolian sands, a little bit of off-road here. There is a white road that marks it, so that's helpful. And then there's just a bit here around Ulastai, which is quite helpful to know. Okay, the next big one that you should probably learn is the double knot. The double knot does actually come up quite a lot, so I think it's very good to know. If I highlight it, we can see that most of it is around here. This road recently got filled in, so it might not appear too much, but it does exist. It's around here. It goes all the way down to here. It's a bit of an annoying cutoff point, but that is where it does cut off. There's a slightly different car that follows this tiny bit of road from the cutoff point here to Altai. It's a unique car, which is actually pretty free if you know what you're looking for. But anyway, the section down here, you know, you've got a lot of mountains. Double knot as well. Yeah, again, you got a lot of mountains here. I think there's a lot of guardrails on this this road, which I think are like fairly unique. You do see them in other places, but I like when I say guardrails in Mongolia, I kind of associate it with this region. So unfortunately, there is a tiny bit of double knot coverage right out here in the middle of nowhere. It's completely not close to any of the other coverage, which is really annoying, but it's not bad. I think if you like look for stuff hard enough, you will probably be able to distinguish what this is, but it's kind of annoying that it's just in the middle of nowhere. And again, with the coverage down here, it's just kind of in the middle of nowhere. Unlucky. Okay, so the next important thing to learn, it does come up. It's maybe not like the highest of priorities, but I think it's quite useful if you see it. Originally, I thought the meta for this bit was that the knot is further away. That was just me being really, really silly and not actually seeing that the knot is there. So I originally had this labeled as single knot far away. Then I realized there was another knot. So I think the way that you now get this is the tent is a lot flatter than the rest of the double knot coverage. And because of that, it is actually fairly unique. So if you take note of how that looked, you can pause the video and go back. And if I click here, you can see that the tent is a lot fuller. And I guess that this knot, the closer knot, is a lot more visible. It's like central and yeah, visible. Whereas here, as you can see, tent really flat and the knot maybe not as visible, and that one is obviously still in sight. And yeah, this is found on this tiny stretch of road just north of Al Ulastai, and then it kind of cuts off here just before the intersection here. So yeah, I think it's a good one to know. It doesn't come up all that much, but yeah, it does happen. An important thing to note is this river, to my knowledge, just does not exist. If you have a look, there's a slight river, but I think the coverage really exaggerates how big the river is. And I know for a fact that in some parts, hopefully I can find a good example, the river's just not there. So keep that in mind when you're guessing around this area. If you have the car, but you're like, no river, then you're probably still here. The river is definitely a bit sketchy. Yeah, I think that is the river, but in some parts it's definitely not there. Okay, going back to what I said earlier about the slight section in between Altai and the double knot coverage, we have the what I like to call perfectly packed. If we have a look at this, we can see that there's basically, like, you can't see either of the knots. The straps should always be flat and they shouldn't be twisted in any way. I'm not 100% about that, but they shouldn't be twisted really. So yeah, I think it's pretty free. Like, if you see it a couple times, you'll know, oh, this is perfectly packed. We can only be on this slight road going into Altai from here. So yeah, definitely a helpful one to know. Okay, now we have quite probably the most important one, the messy straps. If I come over to map making app again, I will show you. Switch off. So unfortunately, this one is the largest. It covers the largest area. It goes from Altai all the way to Ulaanbaatar essentially. There are a few breaks in the coverage. So it's the 4 straps which unfortunately kind of breaks the pattern here of the messy straps, but yeah, that's life. Alright, so there is ways to break this road in half essentially. We're using Bayan Kongor as our middle point, and if we have a look here on the car, we see we have the messy straps and then we have the zipper position. If we head over to the document, you can see that we are falling here, the zipper position. So if we have the zipper all the way in the corner, we should be west of Bayan Kongor on this road from Altai to Bayan Kongor. So that's a pretty good one to know. It'll cut the road basically in half, and it definitely comes up. And then if we are on the other section of road, we should have the zipper where it's like closer to the middle, and yeah, not in the corner. It's only ever in one of these 2 positions, so if you see anything different, you're probably not looking at messy straps, you're looking at something made up, I don't know. But anyway, the 2 metas that I recently discovered, hate to say that, but it's a bit of a gremlin meta. Very nice fan edit. But if we have a look at what we are looking for is the like loose loop on the knot. So if I open one of the locations, we can see we have the big loop that kind of goes over. Once you see it a couple times, you can't really unsee it, and I don't think it takes too much imagination to get this. So I think it's definitely a good one, and that is marked in the green on the map, and it goes from Ulaanbaatar all the way down to Arvakir, not including Arvakir. So definitely a good one to know. And then on the section south of Arvakir, we have the messy straps without the loose loop. I hope I'm explaining that right, but it's not there. Okay, the next one that I think is really important to know is the 4 straps. So I think what we need to also have with the 4 straps is the open tent, because it is technically part of the 4 straps. So as you can see, 4 straps is mainly on this road from Toson Sengul, hope I said that right, all the way to this junction here near Ulaanbaatar. And then there is obviously the really annoying parts that are on this road. If I click on them, you will see that it is 4 straps. It's quite annoying. So the way that we need to break these down is probably the most useful one. I think I'm doing this out of order of the document, but this is probably the way, like the most important one. So the way that you get this section here, which is going from Toson Sengal, I hope I'm saying that again. There is a slightly different car that I've got later on in the document here, so go from this point. As you can see, the tent is open, and we have the 4 straps. Don't get it confused with the messy straps where the zipper is closer to the middle. You really should be seeing inside the tent with this one. And again, that goes all the way from there all the way down to here. It's pretty specific, and you kind of need to know where it breaks off exactly. But I think just use this road, you'll probably be pretty close. I usually zoom in on Corgo and then work from there. Another thing to know, you have the lake here, so keep that in mind when you're guessing. Okay, the next section that I think is quite good to know is this section around Altai. Unfortunately, it does exist, and I don't know why it's so far away from the rest of the 4 straps coverage. Like here, I can understand it's on the way to the big city from this road, which is where it was covered. Not sure how it got down here, but it does exist. And the way to get it is, again, there shouldn't be any folds in the straps, so that's the real way to get it. I guess you can get it because I think don't quote me on this, it's one of very few off-roads using the 4 straps. But the main meta is that there shouldn't be any folds in the straps, and you should have 4 visible. Try not to confuse it with the 2 straps that is also near Altai that don't have any folds in them, but I don't think you should. There's a tiny bit in Altai. I only have 2 locations there, but there is definitely more. Just the way my JSON is. And yeah, it also goes down this road here, if we have a look. Yeah, we can see it exists here. Okay, if I come over to my specific 4 straps JSON, then we can have a look that I have the 2 parts of this road separated. Now, this one I'm not sure is the most useful, but it definitely does help. So if you have the 4 straps and it's aligned to the right, then you're probably around the Karkorin and this kind of area, which is in pink. So you should be on either this bit, or on this bit here around Karkorin. It's not too hard to get if you just have a look at the car itself. You should see that both knots on the tent are like aligned to the right, and it's pretty visible. But where it gets hard is with the car around Serlig. Yep, that's definitely said right. Where this knot, the closer one, is more in the middle. There is definitely a difference, but it's kind of hard to describe, and you might need to see it a few times before actually getting it. Either way, if you don't have the open tent and you don't have the perfectly packed variant of the four straps, you're always on this part of the road, even if you can't use the knot alignment, because honestly, I kind of mess this up sometimes, and yeah, it's not the easiest thing to get in the world, but it does help. Now we're going on to the city and town cars. These can be helpful, but I feel like the ones previously mentioned are probably more helpful. So if I come over to my JSON here we are. So the first one was the car around Toson Sengal. And what we can see is the tent is really flat. You know, we do actually have 2 knots. I think it's actually the same as the what's it called? this one. I think it's actually the same as this, where you have the two knots, but one is slightly less visible. So maybe group them together. I'm not too confident. I feel like it is still gettable by itself. I think the tent is slightly less flat, and you can kind of see subtle differences, but I can understand why you would mess them up. So the next one that is definitely real is the Ulstein car. I've definitely used this one before, and I can definitely vouch for it. If I find where it is, yeah. Here, if we click on one of the locations, as you can see, the tent is really, really flat, like it's almost empty. Sometimes you can see the red, I don't know what it is, but I want to say it's like a blocker at the front of the basket. So that's maybe not always Ulstein, but it's maybe a good inclination if you're in an urban setting. I guess Ulstein is also kind of just a recognizable place. You know, you have lots of hills, and yeah. But it is gettable with the flat tent, and you can sometimes see the front. Okay, coming down to possibly one of the most useful metas in this document, in my opinion. I really like it when this one comes up, and it's good fun. So if we come over here, what we're looking for is if this plastic bottle is visible on the side of the car. Now, if you have a look, it is actually single knot. I've clicked on a bad example, but it is actually single knot, and it just follows the pattern of this road. But in this small section, you can see that the plastic bottle is visible. You should, in some places, also be able to see the lake, and as you can see there. So you'll know that it is around this kind of area. There's a tiny bit of coverage in Songino as well. Again, not the most important thing, but if you see it in an urban environment, just click Songino, you'll 5K. Okay, the next one that is, again, it does come up, but I think it's quite funny. It's the mysterious black object that I still have not been able to identify. I originally thought it was an extension of the water bottle, but I've come to the realization that that is not a water bottle. And yeah, it is basically just found on this road before the bridge and slightly on the bridge on the road up to Ulaangom. So yeah, it's pretty helpful. Again, you kind of need to know where it starts and stops, but if you can kind of just get the right idea, you can get some pretty big points. Okay, so this part of the document's kind of a joke, but I said I would cover everything, so I may as well. Things so obscure that it will never happen. So we have a tiny bit of like really random double knot coverage in the middle of nowhere. So if I come and select double knot, I think it's this one. Let me just double check, because honestly it's so obscure I've never seen it. So what we're looking for to get this tiny bit of coverage is we're looking to see if this blue tent, I'm going to call it blue, is visible in this tiny bit in between the two bars on the basket. So I've said in the document, if it's sitting in the basket, then you're in that tiny little bit here. So as you can see, the blue tent is visible through the two bars, and it's kind of like a window, and you can see the blue tent in there. So obviously that means we're in this one tiny bit. But for the most part, the rest of the double knot coverage does not have the tent sitting in. So that is probably the most useful meta you will ever learn. And yeah, I hope to see this at the World Cup next year. So yeah, that's actually the end of the document. You can read it for yourself. There is a TLDR here. You can pause and read it. But that was everything. I've kind of hope I've talked about it well enough. I've not included any Ulaanbaatar locations in this document. I do have a couple meta that might be useful. but I don't know if they're reliable enough yet, like, to be able to be used. My general thing for including something, or sorry, my general rule for including something in this document is, can I use it myself? And if not, then it's not getting added. There are some things that definitely, like, they can be useful, but they're not like 100%. So I might just keep gatekeeping them for now, but they might be added eventually. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I hope this was useful. Again, the document link will be in the description, and join Mongoliacord if you need some help. The JSON as well will also be there, and yeah, thanks. I think this is where this